got the tools that I'm going to use here to add the clapper. Some call it a ringer, some call it a clapper. You can see in here how I attached it, and I'll go over the whole process. I've got another one here. This one's just got one simple loop. This one attaches with a simple loop as well. And then the wrapping. I would say the wrapping here is the trickiest part. So it might be easier to start with 18 gauge and practice first. For a bell like this, which may be a little heavier on one side, you see what I did here? The wire came in, and then I pushed it to the left, and then I pushed it to the right. Then I made a ring right here that this is attached to. So I just zigzag the wire so that the wire is pressed against the head, zigzagging right here. I made a little, just a simple, it's nothing, it's just a simple bell here that I thought I could practice on. I've been worried, I wasn't sure if the hole was big enough. It is, it's big enough for 18 gauge, but 16, let's see, 16, oh, I can't believe it, 16 barely fits on this one. So I'll use the 16 to demonstrate what to do here. So, pull that out. I've got 16 gauge wire here. This is the brand that I use. I also have 18. I use the 18. Usually I just use the 18 for this inner wire here. The 18 is softer. I've got a couple of different pairs of pliers. These are my favorite because they open and close on their own. These require that I position my fingers in a certain way, so I open and close them. And these are much smaller. These are jewelry pliers, and you can't use them for anything thicker than 18 gauge. So I won't use them right now. And then I have a Sharpie here because this is what I use to get this shape here. I cut off a piece of wire. Let's see, I'll measure it. I've got a ruler right down here. Let's see. About how long? I always like to start with more wire than I need. This is going to be this part and this part in here. Let's see. So it's about 10 inches, maybe a little longer than that. And because it's 16 gauge, it really holds its shape. That's why I like it so much. You have to like work at it to straighten it out. And I don't usually worry too much about that because I'm about to curve one end anyway. So I give myself a couple of inches here. This is going to be the wire that wraps here. So instead of wrapping around towards the end of the wire, I wrap in here, and I just gently push the wire down so that I'm making a loop like this. There's my loop. And then I need to straighten it out a little bit. So I just take the pliers and I come right in here, and you can just keep the marker in there if you want. And I just straighten the wire out a little bit. So it looks more like this, a little straighter. And then I have to take this wire and wrap it around. So I like to just keep that marker in there, and it helps to hold the shape. And you can use your finger. If not, you can use the pliers. It gets to a point where it's too short now. I've got to use the pliers. It's too hard. So I just squeeze with the pliers. You could try to grab it like this and wrap it around. And you might like it loose like this. I usually tighten it up, so I squeeze it, tighten it up. really only needs to wrap around once. It doesn't need to wrap around many times. So I can trim this, or I'll try and cut it. I can't get in there. So I'll just lay it flat. Just flatten it out. Just use the pliers to lay it flat. Still has a little curve, but that's okay. I can straighten it. You can grab onto this with the pliers and pull the wire straight. Like this. That's just fine. So really there are two approaches. When I have something like this with ears in the way, I like to have this loop already made. So the loop goes on the top, and then I push around, I play around with whatever loop I need to make here, and then I add the clapper. But if the top is smooth, sort of like this one or like this one, I could let this be the inner loop. Go through this way. So now I have the inner loop inside, and I could do the same thing outside that I just did. Use my marker and wrap around. I'd like it to be a little straighter, so I can just use the marker to bend it straighter. And then you can keep the marker in place and just wrap it like this. I'll definitely cut some of this. Then it's a little wide here, so I'm just going to give it a squeeze right here. See that? And I could hold it, I could put the marker back in there, I could grab the end with the pliers and wrap it. Hold it like this. And then I'm getting a tight connection because I have loops here and loops here. Squeeze it tight. That's one way to do it. And I think this is easier, but if you have ears in the way, then it's a little harder to do it this way because the ears get in the way. I'm back and I made another one of these. And I'm going to use this rabbit as my example. So I'll come through the top here and I'll leave the loop at the top. And usually the next thing I do is I take this wire here and I just push down with my thumb and I push it against the side. Push it against the side of the bell like this, and that starts the loop. And here's my loop. I eventually reach in with pliers. But I end up with a larger loop this way, which is fine with me. It doesn't bother me. If I have any problem with balance, so now I'm just going to take a look at it and see if it leans. If it leans a little bit, meaning like if I'm holding it like this and it won't sit straight. It leans a little bit, like the nose tilts up a little bit. So then, in that case, I would do something a little differently. I mean, right now, I could just be done. If it balanced nicely, I could be done here. And then take a ringer. Here's a nice glazed. So I use that ball mold with a long piece of wire. The wire's been fired in there, locked in there. I could just take this. I don't know how much wire I need, so I'm just going to keep it. Keep all the extra for now, lock it in there and see. But it hangs out a little too much. I want my loop to be a little smaller. I can shape it with the pliers or my fingers, it doesn't matter. But I do want a nice overlapping loop. By overlapping, I mean this has made my fingers completely dirty, but that's okay. Where it overlaps like this, right here. My camera wants to focus on the wrong stuff. Right there. So, let's see if this fits. Just hook it on there. Sounds good. Sounds good. But I think it's hard to see that it's tilting. But I'm gonna play with the wire a little bit. So I'm gonna take this off for now. I'll keep it for later. I'm gonna open this up again. So this is what I have. I'm gonna do something like this one, where I zigzag the wire toward the end. So again, I'm just gonna push off to the side like I did before. Then I'm gonna fold that. You have to stare at my black fingers right now. My filthy fingers. Gonna fold this wire down and push it across to the other side. I'm gonna move that out of the way. Here we go. Zigzag it back so that I have just this extra wire going back and forth like that. That will keep it straight. Then I'll take the rest, what I have left over, and shape that into a loop. I can get in there with my pliers. As long as the loop crosses over, we're good. Let's see how this works now. It's too long. It's a little too long. So I'm just going to take this loop and push it down so it's lower. That. Maybe even a little lower. I can just grab onto it with the pliers and push it down like that. Come in there with this. Better. So here it is.